Sarah, if you take the roll.
Sorry. Before we begin, I want to make all attendees aware that this meeting is being recorded and will be posted to the village's YouTube channel within the next 2 working days. Please be mindful of individual privacy and avoid sharing any personal or sensitive information that may not be appropriate for online distribution. Please stay here when I call your name to indicate your presence. Jim Schuler.
Here.
Ms. Apfel. Greg Engel.
Here.
Lily Vickers. George Cullen.
Here.
All right, we have a quorum. I'd like to call the meeting of the Maple Bluff Public Works Committee to order. The first thing in our thing is approval of agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda? Move. Second? I'll second. All in favor? Aye.
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 Citizen comment on any subject not on the agenda. Anybody here to speak about anything that's not on our agenda? Then we will move forth to the thing that I think you're here for. Actually, first we have to discuss and take action on Public Work Committee minutes dated July 29th. Have a motion? I'll make a motion to approve that. Go to second. I guess I'll say aye then. I'll give it a second. All in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Discuss and take action on permanent no parking on the east side of Fuller Court and north side of Farwell Court to include installation of no parking sign. So I'd like to start out with inviting public comment. If you we'd like it if you identify yourself by your name and your address for the record. You don't have to, but we'd like you to, and if you can try and keep your comments under 2 or 3 minutes, we'd appreciate it. Was there anybody who'd like to speak?
I'm Michael Kuharski from number 40 at the end of Fuller Court. And I've been here since '87. And our house straddles the court and Sherman Avenue. That is, the driveway is on Sherman Avenue. And our public entrance is on court side. So we depend for visitor parking on the court parking. I walked it just before I came here, and there's room for probably, I'm not sure, can you clarify for me what means the east side of the?
I assume it's the Sherman Avenue side of the work court.
Yes, no, I'm sorry. There's a fire hydrant there.
Right.
And it's south of the fire hydrant toward the end of the court included in this proposed restriction.
Do we know?
Well, I don't know that we,
From what I saw that, I'm sorry, go
the
ahead.
signs are currently on our side, whatever side that is. I don't know if it's east side of Fuller Court.
East side of Fuller Court.
Yeah.
That would cover it up. There we go. You can listen. Right. So it would be, can you show him that? So everything in pink?
Can we please see it from the Zoom?
Yeah, this would be very difficult for us, unless you can remove the room for 2 cars parking to the east of the park that's beyond the fire hydrant.
Okay.
Well, we don't have a lot of visitors at our home, but a couple of times a year we will entertain, and it's very important to us that there be parking available.
Do you have a bee? Is she allergic?
Extension of that.
Yeah, I do too.
Thank
I
you.
need it. Mhm.
I would assume that that we can waive parking restrictions under certain conditions.
Well, the intent is that this would become a no parking area under our ordinances. And I guess that would be a question for Tanner, whether there is a question.
Well, I know I live, within a block of the governor's mansion, so a lot of times no parking signs are put up. on one side of the street or another. I don't know that we've ever, of course, we don't have parking restrictions, I wish we did on some of our streets, but, I don't know if the reverse is true, but we'll find out.
Okay. Well, absent such reassurance, we would be opposed to this, but we understand that where the street narrows and goes over the crest of the hill, there's safety concerns there. We
Would
do
you-
agree that there should be restriction of parking at the crest of that hill.
Would you have objections if there's no parking signs went from, the intersection with Fuller Court to the fire hydrant?
We could live with that.
Thank you. Anybody else like to speak?
If I would. My name is Mark Farning. My wife and I, Janet, we reside to put that graphic back up. We reside at 17 Fuller. We lived there for 5 years. We were 20-year residents on the lake, on Lakewood Boulevard, just a couple houses down from the beach house. Then we moved 5 years ago to Fuller's Woods. We put that graphic back
I
up.
wondered where you were.
Yeah, well, you and I used to walk our
Yeah.
dogs on the golf course. So, are you able to put that graphic back up or what?
That was a scanner, yes, can I put that?
So, my wife and I have been there for 5 years now, and for 5 years, we have been, concerned about two things. First and foremost is the safety of the children and all of the people that walk in Fuller's Woods, in this area. And because of the, hill that occurs right here, and our home is right here, so we have the longest linear footage of anyone on the street on Fuller Court. And there's a hill here, and of course, there's this curve, and the road narrows there. So our concern has been the safety of the people that walk, especially the children who are on scooters all the time, going back and forth there very quickly. This is of course predominantly in the summer. And then the other is the visibility. What I have here, some handouts for the committee, if you'd like to look at those, indicating what sometimes happens with the parking when they're parking on both sides of the street, on our side of the property, street, and our side of the street where our property is, I should say. And then the other thing is, for 5 years, we have contended with these temporary signs. They have become permanent temporary signs. And every single week, I have to go out and pick up the sticks, put them back on the lawn. Here's some pictures of where the placards don't stay on the sticks. The children take the sticks and use them as swords. One of my neighbors took all of the street signs down, street signs, and took the wood because they wanted to use the sticks to prop up their tomato garden. So they're being used for lots of different unintended purposes. But the main thing is the safety of the children and the other people walking their dogs in this area. We believe that, again, the graphic is not up there, so it's difficult to talk about it. We believe that the restricted parking does not need to be all the way on Fuller Court. For example, down to Mr. Walsh, the Michael's house. It doesn't need to extend down that far, but it does certainly need to extend where the hill is and where the curve is. We spent $120,000 in landscaping on our house when we bought it, including over $1,000 to trim the trees on the street. I actually belong to the village or some part of it, but they were overhanging the trees, so we spent $1,000 to have a tree trimmer come in and trim those trees. So I think this is an issue that's been going on for 5 years that really needs the attention of this committee. We thank you for putting it on the agenda, but it's gone on for too long. And I'm frustrated by the lack of safety. I'm frustrated by the lack of attention to this. I'm frustrated by having to pick up the signs every week, and the placards that are all over our yard on a continuous basis. And in the winter, when snow comes and there's clouds, the street gets even narrower. So that's a problem. Parking time is most predominant in the fall, spring, and winter, fall, spring, and summer. Not as much during the winter because of the snowbank. But it's still a problem, and it's an unusually narrow road in the area that I'm talking about, where that curve is. And so we'd like you to please get your serious attention and make whatever permanent implement whatever permanent solution can be made. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else like to comment? Yeah, I'll ban Tim and that, so. Very. Out of the cul-de-sac down there. And I agree with what these gentlemen have said. I don't believe that we need no parking all the way down the corner. Me, coming around Farnham's property, maybe a little bit into Seaver's property is fine. And that's really where it's at. The rest of this, I don't see any reason for no parking. Tim, do you know where that fire hydrant is? Yeah, it's right here. So it's quite a ways, 3.5 blocks down. Yeah, because you can barely get a car in between the fire hydrant and the curb.
So that's right.
Yeah.
The cul-de-sac, which is where we think we're saying that one might still imagine parking taking place. The cul-de-sac does not narrow until probably 1 or 2 car lengths to the east or northeast of that fire hydrant. But certainly when the cul-de-sac ends and the street of proper width begins, that needs to be the street.
And Tom, you can, and Brian can comment on this, I think it would be problematic I think it'd be easiest to enforce and just visually to work if you expected the no parking zone to extend to the fire hydrant. I think if you tried to reestablish legal parking between the fire hydrant and the sign, say maybe 1 lot up, I think it'd be confusing. Yeah. Right.
What is the minimum distance you can be for 500? 10 foot from 5 foot.
We can't hear him.
I believe it's a 5 foot on either side of the fire hydrant, no parking. On that range.
I mean, it's hard when especially as you get toward my house, because there's not many options for get parking. And so to eliminate that permanently, all along here, from Seaver's property here at 16 all the way down, it doesn't give much opportunity here to somebody having a party or dinner party. I admit my neighbor was having a hoop-to-do party, and people were, guests were walking all the way from Fuller Drive down there. And I went and put a paper bag on 2 of those no parking signs, so that they could park for the party. Tanner, could you come or take advantage of the opportunity if you put a no parking from here in the corner?
That's a good suggestion.
Yeah. Anybody, George, do you have any comments on this?
I don't know if I'm the only one, but I don't know if it's because the speaker system might have not worked. There's a decent amount of echoing.
Yes,
It's really hard to hear you all.
yes.
Sounds like, okay, you agree. I'm hearing a lot of it, but not all of it. I think it's
Well, I just changed the speaker, so is it any better?
yeah, kinda. I was just gonna bring up, I'd be curious, what's the process, and I think it's further down on the, I know it is, further down on the agenda of how to determine when you have
Mhm.
citizen input on no parking signs. It just would be helpful to understand that as it relates to this issue.
Well, that's a good question, George. So we don't have a process presently. In informal discussions between me and some of the staff, we've been looking at creating a more formal process for occasions like this. I just put together some recommendations today, so we're going to table that discussion till our next meeting. But generally, I researched best practices around the state, and got some ideas from discussions with Brian Berquist, our engineer. And really the process that's been followed for this specific application mirrors what we'll probably recommend. We've got a decent amount of neighbors involved or that are proximate to the issue and voice support for some type of no parking enforcement. We've done a low-cost temporary test with the semi-permanent signs. We've taken whatever data is necessary. There's not a lot under this type of application. So I think we're on process, but we'll formalize that in oncoming meetings.
Great. And we just heard you much better there if the microphone was switched.
Great. Thank you.
So I live at 16 Fuller Court, Flint Woodman. We're right on the curve, and we have 4 children that have grown up there. Our youngest is 7 years old. I think if you go beyond what's temporarily there with no parking, you're going to have a lot of parking just moving down the court towards the other direction. So I would limit the amount of no parking you put, and if you do it, it should be just on the curve. That's my feedback. We've never had a safety situation with our kids. There's not a lot of traffic on the court, so very rarely is there more than one car driving one way or the other.
And this is Amy Cothy. I live at 8 Fuller Court, and I've been here since '07, and I raised my 3 daughters here. And I guess before we jump into lights and no parking and all this mayhem, I would like to understand how many incidences we've had in the court that is even bringing this up. So kind of like Clint said, we are the 2 families that have the most children that live in the area. Never once have my children felt unsafe. Never have they played in the yard and felt unsafe. I think what's unsafe is when we are parked legally and people are honking at us. I'd like to take note of that. I think that's when things become more unsafe and more disturbing. So I think before we make a big plan, I think we should understand if it's even necessary to have a big plan. I agree that that little curve, I drove it today, is a little tight. But other than that, before all these signs went up, we've never had issues. So I don't know why this has become such a big issue in the last couple of years. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak?
I should just say, the reason this has always concerned me is because many years ago, my mother-in-law was living with us, 83 years old, and she used to take a walk, and she'd be out walking with her walker, and she had a really close scare with a car. And I said to her, Dorothy, you're supposed to walk on the outside of the curve and not the inside of the curve. It happens.
I agree. I agree with Clint that right at that little bend is an issue. But, you know, it's almost like living on a country road in Maple Bluff, which is one of the reasons why we like this. So we're taking a country road and making it a city road. And I think if people don't want to live in the city, maybe they shouldn't live on the court. So
I just would like to add one final thing. Our windows all look out on that corner, and I have at least in the past 3 months during the summer, seen 7 instances where little children were almost run over by cars. They were on scooters, they're going very fast, and they couldn't stop or the cars couldn't see them. So I disagree with the fact that there aren't any instances. There are, and we see them regularly from our windows.
And I think part of the reason I'm Janet Barnett, I live at 17 Fuller Drive, and I brought up this topic a month ago. We also, the other part of our house faces Fuller Drive, or excuse me, Fuller Drive, and we see these little kids coming down that steep hill, and they're going fast. They're in the middle of the road, and then they turn one way or the other, and sometime into Fuller Court, and they don't see that there's a car coming. And there's been some near misses, and you know, I unfortunately have my kitchen window right there, so I see everything. And I guess my whole point is, of course, drastic does happen. In the beginning, it would be nice if there were more of an open area and you know, just a little more care there.
Let me ask the question of residents. So we've had temporary signs, no parking signs up there in the area that's been described. They haven't gone beyond the fire hydrant, correct?
Right.
They've just been from the fire hydrant up to the curb.
And if I might add, they usually don't even go as far as the fire hydrant.
Okay,
They don't
so
go
those
that
have been in place for about a year,
5 years.
5 years?
Yes.
So there has been no parking there, whether it's been followed or not. So has that helped? I know the problems with the signs,
Yes.
but I mean, are putting in permanent no parking signs going to do anything that the temporary parking signs?
No.
A lot of times the temporary signs have fallen down. There's just a stick hanging there. The plastic has come off. Just the picture that I just gave you today,
Right.
the police officer just replaced that stick on Sunday. So now it's Tuesday morning and I looked out and the placard has come off the stick. So even when there are these temporary signs up, people still ignore them and park there. Not all the time, but on a fairly regular basis. And we're not.
I haven't seen their parking there. I have to disagree.
My wife and I are not suggesting that the restriction be all the way down to the end of the Fuller Court where the circle is, but just particularly where this curve is and up that corner where the cars tend to cut the corner and go into that area.
All right, any more public comment?
I will say that the removal of the trees and the shrubbery on that property vastly improved the visibility and hence the safety in that area. But
Thank you.
I mean, the dynamics are still what they are, but
Yeah.
I think you did the best that you could with that situation. We appreciate it.
Thank
I
you.
agree. Thank you. I agree with that.
All right, Greg?
So we're not talking about, there's still parking on the west side of
Correct,
that block,
yes.
right? So it seems that it'd be reasonable if we like looked at putting a sign kind of right, but maybe on the border between 15 and 17 or somewhere there that made sense from the street's point of view to just say no parking here to the corner, and that would just kind of cover the curve. I mean, that would be
That does agree exactly with what I thought when I walked it just before I came to this meeting. That would be an ideal way to mark that.
Tom, Brian, any thoughts on this?
You know, an abbreviated version, I think would work. But what hasn't been mentioned, there's been, 3 major home projects in there. And a lot of the no parking was to keep, you know, all the trades showing up and, you know, with all their big equipment and bottlenecking that whole point.
So is that going away? Are all the major projects finished?
No.
You know, there's one underway right now.
Right. Yeah.
Well, there hasn't been much problems with construction vehicles because of the signage, and also I gotta say, Clint, you've done a good job advising your contractors to not park on the other side of the street.
Right.
You know, so that's been.
Paul, Brian, any thoughts?
We would always encourage flexibility, particularly if we got some long-term temporary demand on the parking there. In just looking at it, we often try to encourage folks to think about stall count, because usually that's kind of a driver. Is if people want parking, more equal better, generally speaking. So in that theme, we try to also look at which side has fewer driveways. Or because driveways also have a kind of a safety halo around those that want people to not park right on the edge of the driveway. But in the theme of trying something that is not working, I think extending it makes sense and give it a shot.
The east side of the street where the problem is, it does have fewer driveways. In fact, on the east side, there's probably one illegal driveway next to our property. And probably doesn't meet code, and then beyond that, all the way down the circle, there are no driveways. So there is enough room to accommodate cars, because there aren't any driveways that would be blocked.
So folks, what I'd like to do now in the spirit of moving this along is I'd like to restrict the discussion to committee members and staff. Before we take action, if we do take action, I'll invite follow-up comments. Is there anybody that would like to make a motion regarding this? So we can move on to discussion of potential action.
Well, it seems like there's a fairly good consensus that this curve and this piece right here is a problem, and the temporary parking signs haven't solved it. So what I would make a motion is that this, refer to Public Works just to the exact spot that makes sense, but to look at installing a permanent no parking sign, like a no parking here to the corner, somewhere sort of on the border between 15 and 17, that would create a safety zone around that curve to the corner. That would be my motion.
George, would you like to second that?
I wanted to just make sure, and maybe the second would allow for this, but it would be good to hear from Amy and Clint on if this is in line with what they were thinking. As I heard it, it seemed like this was a compromise with everybody involved. So if I make a second, do we still have the opportunity, Jim, to hear from Amy?
We'll move on to discussion, and I'll open it up to input
Okay.
from the neighbors before we take action.
That would be great.
So
I'll
thank you. So let's move on to discussion. Neighbors, Amy, Clint, you've been mentioned. Anybody else? Would this compromise work for the neighborhood? Amy?
Oh, so you're saying compromise, so right around the corner to the end of Janet's house is what you're saying, where the temporary signs are right now? Because the picture you just showed, it said no parking on the west side, so I just want to make sure it's clear.
This would be no parking on the
East
side closest to Sherman Avenue,
Correct. Okay, just want to make sure.
whatever direction that is.
Maybe
Yeah, Amy,
somewhere-
my apologies. I wanted to share what the engineer was talking about. There's the option of either side of the road. However, I think what everyone is settled on is that the east side of the road that does not have driveways is the side that presents the most concern.
Mhm.
And so that's what's being discussed right now.
Yeah, I can compromise with that.
Anybody else?
Yeah, this is Jeff Olson. I'm at 32 Fuller Court. I think the compromise makes sense. It considers safety first. That corner does narrow. It can be a blind corner in perfect driving conditions. Winter and darkness with the lack of light presents further danger for not just the residents, but anybody who walks through there. And there is a lot of foot traffic that tends to come down the court. So I would agree with the motion. I think it makes sense for the neighborhood. Thank you.
And can I just add a thank you to Clint and the Woodmans, because they have been keeping their pole lamps on and lighting that corner at their own expense. I think they should get a tax break.
Or maybe some contribution from their neighbors.
Oh, there's that.
Yeah, there's that. So I appreciate the thought.
Actually, one of the lights is out right now because of the construction. They have it turned off. So the one that's closest to the curve is on, but there's another one that's off right now. But yeah, I agree with the compromise as well. That sounds good.
Any more comments from committee members? Greg, George? I have a motion. I have a second. All in favor of putting in permanent signs for the area described? Signify by saying aye.
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 Oh, Lily, that's you. Okay, sorry, I didn't
Yeah,
ask
that's
you
me. I'm still here.
the number. Thank you. All right, motion passes. We'll, Tom, if you guys will look at it and figure out the exact wheres, and I don't know if you can take a look too, Brian, at some point, but figure out the right wording and the right execution. Thanks, everybody, for coming to the meeting. Sorry about the technical difficulties. We are gonna talk about lighting. I think it's gonna be a short talk, but I'm not quite sure why that. So the next issue on our agenda is discuss and take action on additional street lighting on Fuller Court. I thought that when we last discussed that, we kind of tabled that.
Wait, do we have the
In-
Farwell Court too?
Oh, I'm sorry.
North side of Farwell Court? Or should we
Okay,
just-
let's talk. Is
You know, we
anybody
could
here to
just-
talk about Farwell?
Or we could take care of Fuller Court and then if you.
No, we should stick with the agenda.
Okay.
I think we need more information on Farwell Court. So I'd like to make a motion to table Farwell Court till our next meeting.
I
Tanner,
second that.
Yeah, I'm happy to provide some color, Jim. Yeah, so similar to Fuller Court, but distinct and different. There was a number of, there were some concerns about parking along Farwell Court as well, raised over the past year or two. And I think that based upon my preliminary conversations with residents up there, and I don't know if anyone is here from that area of the community tonight, but my understanding is that there isn't as much of a desire in that area. So I don't think that there is the public interest at this point from what I've heard to move forward with that yet. And so I do advise that we would want to get more clear data about what the community wanted up there before taking any formal action.
all right, are we agreed to table that? Do we need to take action on that? Take a vote?
Lily seconded, so yes,
Okay.
please take that one.
So we have a motion and a second to table, Fuller Court, no parking, not Fuller Court, Farwell Court, no parking signs. Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. It is tabled. Discuss and take action on additional street lighting on Fuller Court. Now, I know in our last meeting, we discussed that, but
Well, you had asked Tom to get an estimate on.
right,
the street
right.
lighting.
But I got the impression from the neighbors that was, they weren't as interested in adding.
It's not as important, thanks to Woodmans who keep their lamps on. But I would like to see that situation remedied on a permanent basis.
Living across the street from a street light, be careful what you ask for.
I know, I live across the street from one.
Right?
It lights up your bedroom pretty well. And there's the alternative, of course, of smaller lights. But that probably changes the.
Where are we talking about placing a light?
Along the curve.
Uh-huh.
So-
Like at the top of the hill, basically.
Yeah.
And
And
how-
this is John Cothy at 8 Fuller Court. I would definitely be opposed to that. And there's enough, there is lighting in the court, there's lighting at the corner, and I know that corner there, that the little choke point there can be, is a little bit harder to see, but I think just adding more light pollution to the area is, not something I'd be in favor of.
That's
that first match they played together.
What? You didn't hear
I'd
me?
agree with what John said. We have two post lights. They're LEDs and they're pretty bright. They're about 7 feet from the road. And one of them is out right now because of our remodel going on. They have it turned off, but when that's on, that curve is lit up pretty well across the road.
Thank
We
you.
agree.
Great.
Yeah.
We agree.
Do I have a motion on the lights?
I'll make a motion to decline to install any new lighting on Fuller Court.
Do I have a second?
I can second.
I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion from members of this committee?
No, I think we're good.
All right, all in favor of not installing additional lighting at this time on Fuller Court, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. See him.
Can I ask, I assume the third proposal that we made of lowering the speed limit to 15 from 25 is not found favor with the committee.
Well, we have not put in our agenda, so we are going to be at our next meeting, we're gonna be talking about more orderly process. So that when any neighbors have any type of traffic control issues, including speed limits or things like that, you don't have to wait 5 years to get a yes or a no. But I'd suggest that once we have those, and we should have them resolved within a couple of months. If that's something your neighbors want to pursue, there will be a process to follow to request that.
Thank you.
I will tell you that just in our experience, and I think Brian, you've told me this, is 15, it's very tough. I mean, it's easy to put the signs up. It's tough to get compliance.
Yeah.
It's tough for cars to go 15 miles an hour.
See, and I more like see those signs as, whoa, wait a minute, think about how fast you're going versus really requiring enforcement.
Well, the people you need to slow down are the kids on the electric scooter. So that's that.
I mean, what is the speed limit for a rocket scooter? I mean, there can be a little on that too.
That's a different subject.
It is a different
Okay,
subject.
I'm gonna move on here. Update on North Sherman Oxford Railroad Crossing and Gateway Plan streetscape improvements. So where are we on the crossing, Tom?
Well, I know that I didn't get any further information from the railroad other than the budget decision will be made in October, and it's the number one retrofit that they have for 2026.
And in regards to the Gateway Plan streetscape improvements, further thought and discussions, I think the right way for this to start is since the Gateway Plan originally came out of the Plan Commission and then the Village Board, I think the Plan Commission needs to revisit that portion of the Gateway Plan. I've talked just a little bit to Mark Roffers, our planner, on that, to decide which of the options indeed we still want to pursue, because there's been turnover in both the committee and the board since that plan was adopted about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So let's wait and see what the Plan Commission says, then the board, and then implementation will go through this committee. We'll coordinate with Brian and staff and move that along. Make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay, update on marina improvements. I spoke to the DNR, got a fairly vague negative response to remind people who weren't here in the past, we're exploring the possibility of expanding the water storage places at the Village Marina. We think we've got the requisite amount of space in what's called our riparian zone. But we need to get a permit for the DNR because we exceed their formula for the amount of slips, given the amount of shoreline that we have. So there is a permitting process. I have heard from their waterways expert who checked with her, I believe it was her marine biologist. And what she heard from him or them was that they thought that it wouldn't be in the public interest to grant us a permit to that. That sounded pretty vague to me, so I've requested I'm going to have a phone discussion with her next week on how exactly they define the public interest and if there's any ways that we could mediate that. I also have a call in to a planner that was referred to me by the director of the Capital Area Regional Planning Commission, who has some experience with marinas and getting them approved for the DNR, and just find out whether this windmill is worth tilting at. And I'll report back.
This is Lily. I definitely think it's something worth pursuing.
I'm gonna push, so we'll see where we get. Item 9, discuss and take action on recommending a process for residents to request changes in traffic signage policies. So I just put together a bunch of stuff that you guys might have gotten earlier today. Not nearly enough time for you to digest, certainly not enough time for staff to digest. So I suggest we table that till next meeting. But basically what I did is I did some AI research into best practices across the state. I also got some input from Brian in terms of what other communities do on it. And I put together a possible framework that we might want to follow, scaled down to a community our size, that I think is pretty nimble and pretty orderly. Wouldn't put I think it'd make it easier for all involved. to follow. But let's put that on the agenda for our next meeting. Do I need to make a motion to table that?
I'll make a motion to table.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
I
I.
Would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn?
motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
I'll second.
Thanks, everyone, for showing
Thank
up.
you. All
See you next time.
Thank
We're
you.
adjourned.
right. Bye. Thank you.
We got it done within an hour, even with